So today's webinar is the General Product Safety Regulation, and the topics are General Product Safety Regulation, all about it, or an overview of it, the role of responsible person, which we carry out for a variety of manufacturers, including some of you. We're going to have a brief look at CE marking, which is the other regulatory system for products, the other main one of the EU. And we'll have questions and answers, as I say, as we go along. So the regulation is an EU regulation from 2023, and it came into force last year in around this time, about this time last year. So it applies to all consumer products, even if there's other legislation applying more specifically to them. So it applies to CE mark products as well. But if there are issues of overlap, so typically with safety, so the CE marking safety legislation always has a lot more to say about safety than the general product safety regulation. So in that issue of overlap, the safety of a product, of a consumer product, will be covered by the CE marking legislation. But some other things that GPSR deals with in more detail, those would be covered by GPSR. So the two would apply to all CE marked consumer products. It's not a new regulation. It's a new version of an old regulation. So it started in 1992, and it was one of the key instruments that delivered the EU single market in 1992. And it's had a new edition in 2001, and then it's just had the next new edition was in last year. Was in 2023, came into force in 2024. And the main thing it says is about safety of these products, and that is called the general safety requirement. Other things it has, and particularly new things it's had a major overhaul on in the latest edition, are the obligations of economic operators. So economic operators are people who supply products, whether they're manufacturers, importers from outside the EU, distributors of products within the EU. They're the economic operators. And it has a list of obligations for each of those economic operators. So the old regulations didn't say much about traceability. They required some identification of the product for traceability, but then they didn't say how that should be used in much detail. The new GPSR has much more detail on what you have to do about traceability. So it doesn't have a conformity marking or a declaration of conformity, so it differs from CE marking in that respect. So you just have to comply with it if you're going to sell a consumer product in the EU. You have lots of other things to do, but conformity markings and declarations aren't among them. So it applies to some products with CE marking, particularly for environmental legislation. So battery-powered devices, for example, they have only CE marking legislation that applies to environmental things like EMC and restriction of hazardous substances. And for those things, the safety legislation about those is the GPSR. And then that covers things up to an operating voltage of around 50 volts. And then above that, there's the low voltage directive, covers things with a higher operating voltage. So it's got this general safety requirement. Well, what does that mean for different products? Well, the legislation says that you can only place on the market or make available safe products, but it doesn't say much about what safe products really means. So the legislation is always a lot of product legislation, or most product legislation has standards that you use to give guidance on what the legislation means. And the GPSR is no different, but it doesn't cover that many general products with standards. Only these types of products: furniture, gym equipment, childcare articles, bicycles, cigarettes, inflatables, and electronic devices. They're the only ones that have harmonized standards. So these are the approved standards for complying with the general safety requirement. There's plenty of other things that don't have any standards. So for those, there are other European standards for some of them, which aren't harmonized. There are also national standards of an EU member state. So any national standard of an EU member state would, if it's about safety, would be deemed to meet the general safety requirement. Industries have codes of practice. So industry associations publish those about safety. Those are usually regarded as meeting the general safety requirement. And then really beyond that, it's just anything that you can point to that is custom and practice for safety in your industry. So that's the general safety requirement. The manufacturer's obligations. So the manufacturer is the main economic operator. They're the economic operator with the most responsibility for products. And the GPSR has a list of obligations for them. They are the person who manufactures the product or has the product designed and manufactured. So that would be for people who get their products made outside the EU or by another person inside the EU. They're still the manufacturer if they put their own name or trademark on the product. So really what it means is it's whoever's name is on the product. So even if you put your name on a product but you get someone else to make it, you're still the manufacturer. And so your main obligation is the general safety requirement, only to supply safe products. Other things, so performing some sort of risk assessment. A risk assessment has a wide range of meanings. It can be the exercise of identifying hazards and estimating the risks from them and thinking of control measures for them. Or it can be applying a standard that has rules about safety, or it can be getting a certification body to apply a standard for you and issuing you with a certificate, or getting your supplier getting a certification, getting a certificate from a certification body about safety for their product. So all of those things are forms of risk assessment. So that's another big obligation for manufacturers. If a product needs testing in order to show that it's safe, then you have to do those tests or get someone else to do them for you. You have to have technical documentation proving that your product is safe and that you've carried out the risk assessment and that you do tests as far as are necessary. So you have to document all those things and keep that documentation in case the authorities in the EU have a doubt about the safety of your product and they want to check up on it with you. You have to have procedures to make sure all your products you make are safe, and you have to add certain markings onto the product to identify it, to identify you as the manufacturer, to identify what batch it is if that's important for safety, so that the product can be traced to you, and when the authorities contact you, they can tell you which product they're interested in. So it has to, sometimes products need safety instructions and warnings. If they have particular hazards, they usually need safety instructions and warnings. And these can sometimes be online. If you get a safety issue with a product, you have to notify the authorities and take action, whatever action is necessary to protect consumers from that product whether that's sending out warnings about it, or going and getting the products back, asking for the products to be returned, or even going around and getting them from consumers. So those are the main parts of the general product safety regulation. It lives alongside, in the regulatory environment, it lives alongside another earlier regulation called the Market Surveillance Regulation. So that started earlier than the GPSR, and it didn't apply to the GPSR straight away. It applied to CE mark products. So in 2021, it amended a number of those, and it amended the GPSD to make the GPSR in 2023, and then it came into force in 2024. And the main thing that says is that products placed on the EU market must have an economic operator established in the EU. So even if the manufacturer is outside the EU and they sell directly to consumers in the EU, then they must have somebody in the EU who can represent their product or represent the safety of their product to the authorities. So for EU manufacturers, that's easy. They are the responsible person. If not, an importer would be. If there's no importer, as in products that are sold online directly to EU consumers, then an authorised representative, the manufacturer overseas can appoint an authorised representative, or sometimes if you sell through an online platform, then online platforms offer that service, but some of them don't. So key ones like Amazon don't offer that service. They insist on overseas manufacturers getting their own authorised representative because they realise they can't provide that service. And that responsible person must have a registered office or some other registered organisation in the EU. So they're called the economic operator in that regulation. The GPSR calls them the responsible person. So their job, this responsible person, is to verify that any declarations of conformity and technical documentation proving the compliance of the product exists. If there are declarations of conformity, which is generally only for CE mark products, they have to keep those available to the authorities, and the technical file, so all the technical documentation they have to make available to the authorities. If there's risk from products, they have to inform the authorities about those risks, and they have to cooperate with any recalls or other corrective actions. They have to put their name and address on the product and an electronic address so that they can be identified by the authorities and contacted. And it has to be on the product itself, unless the product can't be marked with those details, in which case it can be on the packaging or documentation. Another part of the GPSR is that web listings have to include some of the same details. So the name and address of the manufacturer and authorised representative or responsible person. They have to include an image of the product, which web listings generally do, and they have to include warnings and safety information on the product or on its packaging and instructions. They also have to be among the information on the web listing. So this allows the authorities to look up a product and find out about the product and the safety of it a little bit from the web listing. They can do that immediately, even if they can't get hold of the manufacturer or the responsible person. So products that may or may not be made available on the market. So this is about manufacturers, overseas manufacturers, when they try and prosecute them, pretending that they didn't intend to sell to the EU. And so the judgment about that is if you supply the product for distribution, consumption or use on the European Union market in the course of a commercial activity, then you are making it available. and you must comply with the GPSR. And if you sell your product to the EU, if you offer shipping and you accept payment in euros, or any of these things, accept payment in euros, or you have listings in an EU only language, then you are deemed to be directing your sales towards member states, and you must comply with the GPSR. So traceability, so we've mentioned that products have to be marked with certain details for traceability. Manufacturers also have to be able to identify where they've sold products. So if a dangerous product emerges, the authorities will be asking exactly where it's been distributed to, so they can try and take action on it. And we've already said about information markings on the product. They're about traceability, so they have to know where many products have been circulated to, and also in certain cases where materials or components have come from, so that if a component is the cause of a safety issue, then those components can be traced through the supply chain. And also these responsible persons details have to be on the product, so that they can contact a responsible person in the EU and have some jurisdiction over them, even if the manufacturer is outside the EU. And there's the web listing information we said about. So this is what our authorised rep compliance company does, is we're the responsible person for a number of manufacturers in the EU and the UK, in fact, as well. So we fulfill the role of authorised representative and and most of the obligations of importers on behalf of those manufacturers. So we have an office in Ireland, so we're an economic operator in the EU, and we fulfill the role of the authorised representative from our EU office in Ireland, and we do those things that responsible persons have to do. So we are identified on the product, we check the technical file, that it's been assessed properly, and that it has those other technical documentation about it, and then we liaise with market surveillance authorities in the EU. So this would be consumer protection and trading standards bodies, and we participate occasionally in product incidents as well. So that's the end of the GPSR part. There's not much to say about CE. Well, we haven't got much to say today about CE and UKCA marking. There's another seminar next week that is about that topic. But the brief preview of that is, so CE and UKCA marking covers 27 sectors of products. It's the thing about safety, it's not called the general safety requirement, they're called essential requirements in the CE marking legislation. So those are the rules about products themselves. And they're generally about how the product's designed and manufactured to make it safer or more environmentally performing, or have compatibility or security. So they're not all about safety. More and more of them are about environmental performance. They also cover markings and instructions on products. And they have harmonised standards, just the same as GPSR, to give guidance on what those essential requirements mean. So unlike the GPSR, they have declaration of conformity for CE mark products. So that's a self-certification certificate with the name of the person responsible and details on the product and the conformity assessment procedure. And like the GPSR, CE mark products also have to have technical documentation. Unlike the GPSR, there's a conformity logo, which is the CE logo in the EU and the UKCA logo as an optional alternative in the UK. So I'm not going to dwell because we've overrun a bit, so I'm not going to say what the assessment process is. I'll just put that up. So these are the steps in CE marking a product. From deciding which legislation through to making it comply, doing an assessment, and making sure all products comply, similar to the GPSR. So that's the end of the slideshow today.